Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Welcome back to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with me, Karl Fitzpatrick. With 2020 just a matter of weeks away, how should business owners be planning for the year ahead? Well-renowned business consultant Tony Ennis joins me now to provide us with his advice for making 2020 your best year yet. Firstly, Tony, how was 2019 for you?
Well, for me, it was a fantastic year. Mad busy, lots of interesting projects.
Give us an insight into some of those projects that you've been working on.
Sure. This year was made up of quite a lot of tourism-related projects, a number of projects concerning business development in manufacturing and services. And then I've always worked with the public sector, so that continued this year as well.
You do a lot of work in the tourism sector, and of course Wexford is synonymous with tourism, especially domestic tourism.
Sure.
There has been a lot of talk over the last 6 to 9 months about UK tourist numbers down across County Wexford. Do you think that that's directly related to Brexit?
Yes, is the short answer. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. The UK market itself is very uncertain, and what happens when a market becomes uncertain is they're more inclined to go back to what they're used to, or to maybe postpone decisions like a trip to Ireland, and maybe see what the year 2020 looks like. So while this year the numbers were down, even not quite as much as maybe you could have anticipated. But I think if Brexit finally gets sorted, and it's a big if, in 2020, I think then as a country we need to go back out, we need to market what a fantastic destination the island of Ireland is, and then Wexford and the southeast fight for their share of the market.
Now, County Wexford has been very successful in attracting domestic tourists here year after year. It's a fantastic product.
Sure.
But what does it need to do in order to be able to grow its international tourist market?
It needs to get out into a marketplace and fight and market aggressively for its rightful share of the market. And I think there are plans ahead to progress that. The new tourism strategy is launched now for the county. That's 2019 to 2023. And it is one of the clear objectives within that strategy that we grow the international market. But we have to go out, we have to get the product right, we have to get the messaging right, we have to get our marketing and awareness right, and then we have to deliver on all the claims that we make.
Collaboration within the industry, there's probably not enough of it happening at this moment.
Sure.
But what needs to be done to drive that?
Well, I think the catalysts need to be in place. I think Fáilte Ireland and authorities like Wexford County Council are leading that charge at the moment, but I think to make it actually happen, every individual tourism provider, whether they're community-based or whether they're private, need to engage fully with it and recognise that the rising tide genuinely lifts all ships. So, and one of the easiest ways to do is for each person or each organisation to ask themselves, how can I contribute? Okay, and if I contribute and everybody else contributes, then I get the return on that contribution.
You've played a very important role here in County Wexford with startups over the past 20 years,
Sure.
through your association with Wexford County Enterprise Board, and of course then delivering Start Your Own Business courses afterwards for Wexford Local Enterprise Office up until last year.
Sure.
So one of the reasons I've asked you to join me this morning on the show is to talk about 2020. And for those of our listeners that may be thinking about starting a business coming into January of 2020,
Sure.
what advice have you got for them?
Well, I'd be saying the first piece of advice I always give to people is do your research. Do it thoroughly and do it comprehensively. And then learn from it. What's the research telling me? What do you actually know about this business activity as a business that you're thinking of getting involved in? Because it's slightly different to work in an area where you're working for somebody else than actually operating your business in. It could be the same area, but it's a whole different focus. So the research is critically important, but then based on the research and you're learning from that, how do you build a business model for yourself within your own capabilities and within the resources that you can bring to bear? And how do you actually deliver the objectives that you require? So what I always say to people is, planning 5 years ahead in business, it's not that it isn't done, but what I say to people is, you're actually much better planning in 1 year time block. So it's a great question in terms of 2020. So if I said to you, what outcome do you want to have in December 2020? And if you're starting in January, where's your plan, an action plan? Where's your action plan to actually deliver those objectives?
Sometimes people are so enthusiastic about the idea and the concept that they leapfrog past that research stage and go straight in head first.
Yeah. Don't do the leapfrogging bit. Put in the miles on the basics. The basics in terms of the research, in terms of trends, trade shows. Trade shows are a fantastic place to get ideas. Okay, you can read industry journals or magazines. You can identify what trends are happening in your particular business area. Perhaps in other countries, you can do that at your desk or on your phone. So quite a lot of research. I'm not saying spend 6 months doing research. Maybe that's necessary, but usually it's not. You can do a huge amount of research in a 4-week time frame. Or there's a fantastic service with the library service in County Wexford called Works Matters. So you can, if you identify the research that you might need, and you write a search brief, in other words, just describe what you're looking for, you can hand it in and it's a free service. So you can plan to do all of that type of stuff. Once you have an action plan, then you need to put the head down and deliver on it. You need to clearly understand the business is about money, and whether it's the key driver or whether it's only part of the function that you're going to have to get involved in. Recent research would suggest, I think I've read 2 reports in the last month that have identified that business owners aren't great at reading or planning financially, reading financial statements or planning. That's a critical area in the business. Look in terms of what's your cost base, what are your projected sales, what's your expected or the profit that you actually need to generate. And then look at that what that looks like in terms of monthly sales, taking into account peak and valley periods in trading and things like that.
One of the other reasons I asked you to join us as well on this morning's show is from existing business owners. I thought it was ample time now to look at putting the thought into their heads about taking some time out over the next 6 to 8 weeks to plan for the year 2020. In order to look at that, I've broken it down into a couple of different sectors. So I want to look at the hospitality and tourism sector, the retail sector, and of course the service sector where most of the employment is in the county. Let's start with tourism and hospitality. What advice have you got for anybody operating in that sector to plan for 2020?
First of all, I'd say have a look at 2019. If you're in an existing business, and it's a great point because very often we're all so busy working in our business, we don't take the necessary time out to look at working on the business. And if you're in, particularly in terms of the hospitality and tourism business, this is a good time of the year to do it. So have a look at what your performance is like in 2019. Can you identify what you did really well? Can you identify your peak trading periods? Can you identify what services or offerings gave you most income? So what can you learn from what you already have? That information is already within your business. So, and then have a look forward and say, what are the trends? So I often say to people, particularly in the tourism, but tourism and hospitality are very much linked. So I'd say to people, go on to the Fáilte Ireland website, go on to the research tab within that. You'll get a huge amount of information there. Have a look at what other providers, maybe not in County Wexford, but similar businesses elsewhere in Ireland or in Ireland and the UK are doing. Is there anything that you should be doing in 2020? I'd also think every business should challenge themselves. Every business owner should challenge themselves. They should challenge themselves financially. So Can you set an aggressive target for next year, for 2020, above and beyond what you think you're going to be the outcome in 2019? And then, can you introduce 3 new offerings?
Let's move on now to retail next. It's a tough sector.
Yep.
It's a sector that there's massive disruption in,
Yep.
huge change online in. So if you were a Wexford retailer today, an independent Wexford retailer, what would you be doing to plan for 2020?
Okay, I'd be looking at where do the opportunities lie. So maybe I'm not online. So have I looked at having some of my offerings available in an online platform? I might have looked at that a year ago, I might have looked at it 2 years ago, but that's a rapidly changing space. And maybe the answer I got last year or the year before won't be the same answer this year. Can I get involved in networks or groupings or initiatives that collectively, again, this is the collaboration piece, collectively, again, we can encourage more people to shop local. We can encourage more people into Wexford, and then I need to find a way that I can encourage them into my particular retail outlet. Again, have I made my business as attractive as possible for potential customers? Have I got the right stock? Have I got the right approach in terms of how those customers are dealt with? Have I looked at the possibility of introducing new stock, introducing new areas of activity within the business? Now, you may have done that, or you may not have done that, but it's worth having a look at. The online piece is really important because that's where the competition is coming from. That isn't going to change in 2020. That trend is well established over the last number of years. So I know that the competitive environment is going to get stronger, and I need to work individually within my own business, collectively within other retail offerings in Wexford or wherever else it happens to be in the county. And we need to come up with a strategy, with a way of working it, but not one of these 5 years maybe strategy and I expect the world to do it all for me. I mean a strategy for 2020.
Finally, this morning, I want to speak to you about service-based businesses.
Sure.
They're providing lots of employment right across the county. 90% of them have less than 10 people employed.
Yep.
Owner-managers is what they're made up of.
Yep.
They're people that are working in the business and maybe not so much on the business.
Sure.
So if we were able to get these people up for air for a week or two over the next 2 months, what would you be advising them to do to prepare for the year 2020?
Okay. I would look at the current year. Where did my opportunities come from? How did I manage to get the customers that I served in 2019? Am I minding those relationships? Is there opportunities there to keep those relationships moving forward into 2020? Do I need to find new customers? If so, what type of new customers? And how many of them am I going to need? And if I have a single service or I have a range of services, can I find more services to get involved in? On top of that, then I would look at areas, well, does my service lend itself? Can I expand that? Does it lend itself to a different marketplace that I may not have tapped into before? Can I get things like, can I get public contracts for the services that I provide? Okay, the e-tenders and all of the public procurement bodies, the work is out there. Now, it gets said to me from time to time, well, I don't understand that system. I don't like that system. It takes forever to go through it. Do you know something? Why don't you refocus your attention on it? If you don't understand it, learn. There's loads of training that can be done on it. You can read up on it. You can give yourself maybe the year 2020 to say, do you know something? I'm going to land some of those. Can I work with other people? Service is a great area where interpersonal relationships are very important. Can I work with other service providers? That allows me a scale and a scope of operation that I couldn't possibly achieve on my own. So if we band together, maybe we can all benefit, we can all get new work in 2020. And then the whole area of, again, challenge yourself financially. Look at your cost base. Is there any way that I can pare back on my costs, without paring back on the service level. Or maybe I can look at efficiency or being more effective. Or I can have a look at where could I, if I challenged you and said, okay, I tell you what, by the end of the year, sell 15% more than you currently sold this year, but increase your profit level from what it currently is in 2019, bring that up by 5%. And then go, okay, how the hell would I make that happen in the real world?
I often think that there's two ways to grow a service-based business. Firstly, you can extend your geographical reach.
Sure.
Lots of service-based businesses, they don't like doing that.
Yeah.
The second one is the whole area of market segmentation. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, market segmentation is really important. So I need to, again, use the information you already have as a foundation point. What are the current segments of the market that I'm dealing with? You can't, most small, and we're talking here predominantly of less than 10 employees. So most small businesses don't serve complete markets. What they do is they serve elements of a market. But even in the elements, is there a particular segment there where there's better opportunities, where I made more money, where I got more phone calls last year, where I got more inquiries last year? And does that lend itself to expansion of that particular segment in terms of my business for next year? Or is there, when I've done the foundation work, is there any other segments that I'm not hitting, that I either ignored, or I was too busy, or I don't know how to get into that segment of the market, but yet my service might easily transition to be able to serve that marketplace?
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was renowned business consultant Tony Ennis, and I would like to thank Tony for sharing such valuable advice with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast